Let's talk about Laken Riley. What was the inspiration behind the creation of the Laken Riley Act?
Well, Katie Britt is sponsoring it from Alabama, and she had the foresight to recognize that the tragic murder of Laken Riley was a rallying cry for all of us. And unfortunately, in America, sometimes it takes a tragedy for us to wake up and realize we have to implement change. And in this case, of course, we had an illegal immigrant, murder Laken in terrible, brutal ways. And after that, we all realized we can't talk about this issue anymore. We have to solve it. We have to solve it fast. We have to do it in a very simple way, which means if you are here as a violent criminal illegal alien and you commit crimes, you are going to be deported and you can't come back. And it's very, very important that we start hammering down on criminal illegal alien activity when they're in the country to protect our communities. It's that simple.
And then why were you so passionate about getting this act set in place?
Well, this election cycle, especially for a freshman like me, we were elected in here with a mandate across the country from coast to coast, whether it was congressmen, senators, or the presidency. Everyone spoke very, very clearly that the violent crime increases we've seen from across this country, whether it's rural Montana or Billings or anywhere else in our state, folks spoke very, very clearly this cycle that they were very frustrated by what they saw and I think accurately predicted was a link between the largest migration in the history of our nation has occurred in the last 4 years. And you can be pro-immigration. Two things can be true. You can support people coming here legally, wanting to make a better life, but also recognize we cannot have unchecked illegal immigration coming into our communities. And there is a link between that and the increase in drug trafficking and violent crime, and this act's going to help us get that under control.
And why is the Laken Riley Act so important for our country?
It's important for every community across this country because illegal immigration is affecting the largest of cities and the smallest of towns. It's bringing with it a fentanyl crisis, a violent crime crisis, and it's attacking almost every institution that our communities depend on, from our schools to our law enforcement, who are overtaxed. Our law enforcement now are forced into also to become healthcare emergency professionals and in many cases mental health counselors as a result of these terrible substance abuse issues, in many cases emanating from this. So the illegal immigration surge that has been unfortunately very associated with narcotics and criminal activity has affected every single facet of our nation, and we have to start solving it now. This is the first step towards specifically focusing on violent criminal activity related to illegal immigration.
How will this act improve the current system or address gaps in current laws that we have set in place?
Well, a lot of it's really just going to compel the enforcement of those laws at every level possible. As we know, we actually have a lot of pretty good laws on the books in America. The issue is enforcing those laws and actually compelling local, state, county governments to take those laws and enforce them properly. Because if you enforce the laws on the book, for the most part, things are going to work out just fine. But the issue is there are a lot of loopholes that, unfortunately, during this mass illegal immigration surge we've seen in the last 4 years, many of those loopholes have been identified and very clearly communicated through some nonprofits, even sometimes through our government agencies. We've seen the CBP even have an app telling asylum seekers where to go and how to game the system. So it's about time we enforce the laws as they exist, but also start closing loopholes that, frankly, allow us sometimes to deport these people 12, 13, 14, 16 times, and they come back and still violate again.
Right. And then the bill states, quote, the bill also authorizes states to sue the federal government for decisions or alleged failures related to immigration enforcement. Can you break that down a little bit?
Yeah, just what I talked about. With state, local, county governments, like any issue in America, like the wildfires in LA that you mentioned here when we were talking earlier, there's cross-jurisdictional challenges that emanate from issues like this. And what this is simply saying is if there is a state government or a local government, even a city government. I was down in Yuma earlier this year, last year, visiting the border wall and talking to the mayor of Yuma about the financial impacts on the city of Yuma to the tune of $25 million a year that the taxpayers of Yuma have to pay to provide health care for illegal immigrants coming across the border, and their first port of call is the emergency room in Yuma. That's giving Yuma or the county or the state the power to go to the federal government to say, you have failed at your obligation as the federal government to secure our border. Now, our community is being negatively financially impacted by that. We now have the right to seek compensation from you and sue you for the fact that you are failing at your chartered duties as our federal government. Sorry, Kylie, I lost audio on you there. I'm not hearing you.
There we
Guys,
go.
I can't hear.
No,
Okay,
that
you
was
back?
my fault. Yep, that was my
Okay.
fault. Sorry. Is there a system in place to hold agencies or individuals accountable if the objectives of the act aren't met?
I mean, there's a system in place for all these things, Kylie. I think the challenge is the people who are within the system have discretion over how that is managed. And of course, elections have consequences. We don't have to point fingers, but we can certainly lay out cause and effect. This administration that's currently in office, the Biden administration, has made it a very open priority that they're going to open the border and they're going to allow and encourage asylum seeking and illegal immigration. They can say otherwise, but their actions belie that. So, a system may exist, but obviously, we need to be able to hold individuals that operate within that system accountable to ensure that they're actually putting the best interest of the American people first. And that's part of what this act's going to do is ensure that throughout the system, at all levels of government, specifically the federal government, which of course is our purview in the U.S. Senate, we have the ability to hold those actors accountable to ensure that they're following the law.
Great. Last question. How do you want this act to evolve in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
Well, the most important part of this act is right now, which is to start the process as soon as we can to get our border secure and to make sure that our local law enforcement, county sheriffs, town marshals, police departments, and state troopers across the country can effectively arrest, prosecute, capture, and take criminals off the street permanently so that we don't have the repeat offenders. And especially if criminal illegal aliens are here illegally and they are arrested, the system is not letting them slip through the cracks like unfortunately has been happening a lot. So hopefully this act, like all good legislation, once good legislation becomes law, we shouldn't have anything to do anymore. Ideally, senators and congressmen shouldn't be running around managing the government. Our job is to pass laws that once they are enacted, they are executed by the executive branch of the government. That's how a republic is supposed to function. And ideally, these acts shouldn't evolve. Once they're in place, they should become law and they should be carried out by the executive branch when the spirit and the letter of the law through which they were passed by the lawmakers.
All right. As far as the Laken Riley Act, anything else you'd want to mention?
We're excited to get it passed. I think it's a fantastic, first point of order to get through as the new Congress to get this act out there because it's such a burning issue for the American people. I think it was a key issue during the election, but most importantly, the election's over. Now it's time to govern. This is a key aspect that's concerning Americans across both sides of the aisle, on both coasts, all socioeconomic spectrums. The American people want the border crisis and the illegal criminal alien crime crisis solved. This will help us do it.